This interview is
See, in as far as WLCAC is concerned,
will be added to
and within the next 10 years, we hope to have put at least 1,000 new housing units in this community.
Is to get a clear picture of or understanding of the role a project director plays in community decision making in relation to local, state, and national government. The interviewee for today is Mr. Ted Watkins, the director of the Watts Labor Community Action Agency. Mr. Watkins is 50 years old. He is the father of 6 children. He has been the resident of the Watts area since 1945. He has been the director for WLCAC for 10 years. Mr. Watkins, what is the present goal of WLCAC?
The present goal of WLCAC today, and what it has been for the past 10 years, is to try to change the face of Watts, physically, environmentally, and mentally.
Mr. Watkins, can you describe the interaction of WLCAC with the community at the present time?
Well, one of the things that I think in order to have interaction, you have to have the broadest number of people possible in a community to be a part of interaction. Our organization today has some 3,500 senior citizens that are members of it. We have some 700 youth that are part of WLCAC, and there are 700 or 800 parents of these youth that participate in meetings and advisory positions, and also who work in this organization. I think that in decision making, in policy making, and in task, one of the things that WLCAC has done is to not set itself up as a bureaucratic agency. We've received a lot of criticism about the fact that there are no superstars in WLCAC except Ted Watkins. One of the things I think that people who look at us don't understand is that there is no white collar, shirt tie type executives in WLCAC that sit around desk. The vice president of WLCAC is in coveralls. Program directors have to perform with their staff. They can't sit in an office and direct a program in this organization. They have to get out and work with the people. I think that this has led to a lot of false impressions about how we interact with our own staff and how we interact with the community. We feel that if, for instance, there was ever a time that any funding source would say to WLCAC, we will not fund you any longer, that it will not affect our organization except for that part of the program that they fund. It won't put people out of work, it won't close down our offices, and it won't remove any of the fixtures of furniture in WLCAC, because we are a physical type operation. We do services, and those services are not services in sitting and counseling somebody or patting them on the back. Our services are providing needed things. We clean yards for senior citizens. We plant trees in the community. We beautify parks. We build houses. We move houses on and renovate them. We drive buses. We transport senior citizens. We cook for them. These are all parts of the things that we provide. We sell food stamps. We have a cattle ranch where we work the cattle. We brand them. We feed them. We nurse them. We do all of these things. And I think that that's one of the things that people don't see about the organization when they come around and begin to evaluate, who's the chiefs and who's the Indians. We're all Indians in this organization.
Mr. Watkins, what about local government, the city hall, starting out with City Hall. How effective do you feel you've been with City Hall?
Well, I think how effective we've been is the record speaks for itself. In 10 years' time, with more than $20 million, I would say, pouring into this city for various organizations, WLCAC has never lost a vote before the City Council of Los Angeles in 10 years. Nor have we ever lost a vote for any issue that we went to the Board of Supervisors on in the last 10 years. I think that speaks for itself.
Okay, city government and the county government is two different local governmental levels. Do you have a working relationship with the county government?
Yes, we do. We have a working relationship with the county government and has had for the last 10 years. It was the Watts Labor Community Action Committee that started the campaign to get the Martin Luther King Hospital in the community, which is a county hospital. I am a vice chairman of the hospital authority. That is the one that authorizes all the expenditures of monies in that hospital, the one that decides whether we're going to put a new building or not a new building. We recommend to the Board of Supervisors different actions, different changes for that hospital for the betterment of this community. We, at the present time, have 2 programs that we operate with the County of Los Angeles. We have, I guess, about 8 or 9 programs that we are operating with the City of Los Angeles. The County of Los Angeles has not been as community organization oriented as the City of Los Angeles has. I think this is a criticism and a condemnation of the County of Los Angeles. I think that the county read the McCone Commission report just like everybody else did. And the county, for some reason, has not involved community organizations in its funding sources and being able to supply them with necessary funds to carry out programs. The county has a tendency to carry out all of their programs in-house.
Mr. Watkins, in your opinion, what is the long-range impact your program will have, say, the next 10 years as things are today?
With the trend, as I see it, as far as WLCAC is concerned, and within the next 10 years, we hope to have put at least 1,000 new housing units in this community. We hope to have an expanded transportation system. We hope to have really made Watts into a new community. Not only Watts, we're talking about the area also just north of Imperial Highway, which is Willowbrook. And at the present time, we have in the plans for some 800 housing units in Willowbrook. We're planning a hotel for that area. We're planning a shopping center for that area, directly across the street from the Martin Luther King Hospital. And I think whether these dreams can become reality or not depends upon the county, the state, the city, and the federal government.
Mr. Watkins, the employees that have worked for WLCAC and gone on, what do you think their future will be as a result of their experience working for an agency like WLCAC?
Well, I think one of the things that has happened in this organization is that we have one of the best records for people who have gone from here to better jobs. For instance, just in the past 8 months, 3 of our people are top people in the city CETA programs. Nancy Siegel, Parker Anderson, and a young lady by the name of Sue. We have a city planner who left this organization and is a city planner for Pasadena. We have at least 3 people who went through WLCAC presently employed in top positions in model cities. The top planner in the Watts local office was a staff member in WLCAC, Ann Smith. Mr. Gibbs over there was a administrative assistant in WLCAC. Mr. Gibbs, I think, has been in Model Cities now for some 3 years. Uh, I see our people in Martin Luther King Hospital in executive roles. I see our young ladies over in the Multipurpose Health Center who were trained in this organization to become dental assistants and dental technicians, now are supervisors in those places. I don't think that there's any way to compare with the record of development and the ladder up as far as what has happened here in WLCAC.
Mr. Watkins, reading the Sunday, March 23rd Times, the thing they did on Watts 10 years after, you mentioned that was 8,000 homes had been demolished, lost as a result of the freeway, and only 500 has been built. Do you feel that you're going to be more active in providing more homes in this area?
Right. Number one, let me say this: that article did not state all of the facts. The entire statement was that there had been more than 8,000 houses lost in this community in the past 10 years, and it was through 3 actions. The number one action was the removal of all of the homes in the urban redevelopment area. Number 2 was the removal of the homes in the right-of-way of the freeway. Number 3, the county of Los Angeles has condemned in this area some 4,000 or 5,000 houses that have been torn down for not meeting safety and code requirements. Our objective is to try to put these houses back in the community. Every time we lose a house, every time a house is boarded up, we have lost a family. And I think that this is a real tragedy for this community, because we need people who have homes and who've been residents of this community. I think what I see is a slow abandonment of the community.
Also, you stated in that Sunday Times article that 20,000 residents had left the Watts area, and some of them have moved to suburbia and elsewhere, and they've only transplanted their problems.
I think this is true. I think that if you look back since August of 1965, we know that there were no black residents living, for instance, in Linwood. Today, Linwood has a heavy population of black residents. They face the same problems in Linwood that they faced here, economics. I think that it's if you look at the city of Compton, when I came to Watts, there were no black residents in Compton, and now you're looking at a city with 70 or 80% of the population being black. Again, the major problems in Compton are economics. If you look at Inglewood, in the past 15 years, Inglewood has become a completely integrated community. And at the same time that these communities are taking on more blacks and more problems, Watts, for instance, is being, you can see by the boarded up houses in this area. In southeast Los Angeles, there are more than 4,000 houses that are boarded up.
Mr. Watkins, if you had your way, so to speak, about the education of the community, what would you propose, generally speaking?
Well, one of the things that I would propose is that is to change the system of education in this community, and I think changing that system would be, number one, to make all of the junior high schools in this area, in South Central Los Angeles, specialty schools. If a kid, when he enters junior high school, if he wants to be a mechanical engineer or anything like that, I think he should be able to go to an industrial arts junior high school. I think that if he wanted to be in the medical field, I think he should be able to go to a medical arts junior high school. If he wanted to be a skilled tradesman, I think he should be able to go to a skilled arts junior high school. And then I think that the 4 high schools in this area should be geared to those junior high schools in raising his level of education. I don't think there should be any book that kid would have to read that didn't relate to the trade or the lifestyle that kid wanted to take up for himself. If a kid wanted to be a doctor, then that kid should be able to start out in junior high school absorbing medical terms. If his history book has to be taken, then I think the history book should relate to history, but tie the history in to medical history. If it's English, then he should be able to read a book that relates to medical terms, medical terminology, experiments, and all of that. If he has to take up a selective, I think that the selective should be something to do with medical arts. If he wanted to be completely an academic student, he should be able to go to a junior high school that does nothing but deals with academics. So he should be able to go to a high school that doesn't deal with anything but academics. But to put a guy into a school situation that wants to be a mechanic, and then he has to go to school for 12 years before he can finally get out of the regular routine to start learning his trade. Then he has to go to a junior high school for 2 years to prepare himself to go to an institution or a university or a college that will teach him how to be a top grade mechanic and give him his paper. I think that's wrong. And I think that's one of the reasons that we have the kind of dropout rates that we have, because the kids are not really interested in what that basic training they're getting. Is not meaning anything as far as what they really want to do with their lives is concerned.
Mr. Watkins, I've heard that you supposedly was born in the state of Mississippi.
That's right.
So, what is your feelings about the migration from the rural areas of the country to the cities?
I think it's a real tragedy for the people that are migrating myself. I think there was a time when people were encouraged to migrate to the cities. There was no amenities to hold them back. For instance, during World War II, when the greatest migrations took place, people found out that they could go to a defense plant in northern cities and in western cities, like Los Angeles, and they could get 4 or 5 times the monies that they were getting in that rural community. I think if the amenities had been there in the rural community, today we wouldn't have millions of people worrying about where they're going to get the next food from. I don't think we would be having the food shortages that we are having, And I think that this is going to be a much more problem in the next 10 years than it has been in the last 300 or 400 years. If you note that one of the recent publications said that today, that there are more people living that have died in all of the history of mankind. So if that's happening today, where will we be in 20 years from now, as far as our population is concerned?
Mr. Watkins, what is your opinion of the religious life of the people at the present time?
The religious life?
Life.
Religious life, I don't know what religious life is. I mean, you'd have to, define what you're saying. If you're talking about the institutions who teach the Bible, that's one thing. If you're talking about people living like what the 10 Commandments say that people should be like, then that's something else. So I don't know which one you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking about the one that the people are living.
Well, I don't see too much, religious life myself. I see a lot of hypocritical things, and let me make this statement. I'm very much upset about the trends that we face as black people, as far as religious orders and religious sects and the whole business that goes on in the black community as it relates to the church. My feeling is that a church has a much greater role to play than opening its doors on Sunday morning and going through a lot of emotional things and then closing those doors on Sunday evening, and the people going out about their merry way, trying to make it the best way they can. I think that one of the things, if the church was a real institution for progress in the community, then those ministers and that organization would be out where the problems are, and not confined in a building of security, and only good people go to church. The sinners, the real sinners, are still out there in the street, and it seems like to me that that's where the work needs to be going
on. What about the so-called capitalistic system Do you see it continuing, or do you see an end?
Well, if you know, see, I have not known what the capitalistic system is. Only thing I have seen is some kind of a mix of socialist thoughts with some capitalist thoughts, and some so-called democratic thoughts. If you looked at this country in its entirety and would say that this is a capitalistic system, and then I would have to say you're wrong, because to me a capitalistic system would have to be one where everything in it, especially the major institutions, for instance, the post office is a socialistic system to me, where we pay the same rates and everybody gets their mail done and all of this. The school system is a socialistic system. The army in its way is a socialistic kind of thing. And more there's a trend. Even the farm support thing is a socialistic. Social Security in its very term, Social Security, is a socialistic kind of a program. Workman's comp is a socialistic. Now they got Medicare. They're even talking about a medical program for the whole United States. So I don't know what, this term of capitalistic system, you'd have to break it out to me, because to me we don't have a capitalistic system. We have a mix of socialism, some social democratic thoughts, and some capitalism thoughts involved.
The labor movement. Do you see the labor movement actually becoming useless in the future, or you think it's going to actually pick up steam?
I think that you're going to see a trend in the labor movement that will pick up steam in certain areas. I think what you're looking at and what you're witnessing today is a change in the labor movement. What formerly was the labor movement was considered as those guys who were either skilled or unskilled. Those guys who worked in factories and who worked on the docks, who worked as craftsmen, who drove trucks, bulldozers, and so forth. Today, the fastest growing part of the labor movement in this country is the blue-collar worker, the state, county, and municipal employees, the policemen, the social workers. So you're seeing a new change in the labor movement today. You're seeing what once was kind of taboo and considered as no way for us to organize doctors and nurses and all that. Today, those ranks are growing faster than any other ranks in the labor movement. I think one of the other things about the labor movement itself, as a general body, is not keeping up with the trends of the time. It's as if they are kind of stagnant and really are not organizing the rank and file to face the major problems that we face in this country. It took them some 6 months of knowing that we were in a major crisis as far as the economics of this country was concerned before anybody spoke out. It took 6 years for them to even begin to denounce Richard Nixon and what he was doing. I don't think that anybody could have been under any illusions when Richard Nixon was elected what kind of a man he was. And we've seen how slow the labor movement was to act or to react to the kind of thing that Richard Nixon was involved in. As a matter of fact, it was another organization that done a hell of a lot more, which was made up of blue-collar workers and white-collar workers, called Common Cause, that really pushed for the Nixon administration to be exposed.
Mr. Watkins, what is the best way to gain more autonomy or freedom for us in this country at this time?
The best way that I see it is that we begin to realize that there will never be no freedom for the black man until the black man begins to own some of the resources in this country, to be able to make the shoes that he wears, to be able to make the clothes that he wears, to be able to raise the food that he eats, to be able to make the other products that he uses. Until we begin to recognize that fact, I don't think we will ever have any freedom, because everything we have derives from the white man. And up to this time, we have not shown any real progress in heading in the direction of self-production and self-help. I think the Muslims movement has done some of that kind of stuff, but that's only a drop in the bucket compared to what is needed in a country of 25 million blacks.
What is your opinion of the black educational institutions, the ones that was created, say, a few hundred years ago?
I think that those institutions probably, if you're speaking of things like Tuskegee and these places, I think they missed the golden opportunity for the advancement of black folk. I think when we started an agricultural and mechanical training school, when people were already some of the best farmers and etc., other people, whites, let me place it, whites were learning how to be doctors, physicists, chemical specialists, scientists, accountants, bookkeepers, you name it, and exploring the reasons to go to the moon. And we had people down there in Tuskegee and some of these black colleges, A&M, learning how to do the menial jobs. I can understand some of the statements about if you're going to be a bootmaker, be the best one and all of that. But and I can't just criticize what's happened in the past. I've seen in the past 10 years a new trend, a completely new trend that set us back, as far as I'm concerned, another 20 or 30 years. And that was the trend once all of the doors across this country had been opened for the entry of black students in Mississippi, in Alabama, in North Carolina, South Carolina, in Arkansas, where people risked their lives and some of them did lose their lives, to open major institutions to us. We got into a bag. And the bag, to me, was the bag when we began to go into these institutions and began to get in a bag of learning how to be a black history teacher, or getting into a class for black culture, and making our major black studies. This to me was one of the biggest mistakes that has happened since the Reconstruction period. What I found out in 1972, I had 10 kids to come to me with master degrees in black studies, sociology, political science, and black history. They couldn't find a job nowhere in this United States. Those kids came to me and worked for $100 per week because there was no skill that they had. And here I was looking for an accountant that I was paying $18,000 a year to. I was looking for managers for ShopRite markets that I couldn't find. I was looking for planners that I couldn't find. And here, but all of the black studies, black history, and sociologists in the world, I could find. And I think that this was one of the major mistakes of black students during the past 10 years.
Mr. Watkins, my last question is, what is your advice to people who are aspiring to become elected officials and also those who are presently holding elected office?
Well, one of the things I think when you begin to take a good look, most of the people that I have seen who aspire to be public officials seem to think that that is the easiest way out of a life of failure. I'm thinking this, and to me, and if you check out most of your black elected officials, most of them, they were not a success in the field that they had majored in. I've seen black lawyers, who wasn't making it out there in the law field, so they run for office and become, different kinds of official in government. I've seen other kinds of people who really not made it. If you take a real look at the background of most of our black public officials, they were not prepared in the first place to take on the task of running a city. I think a man has to open up his mind. When he gets one of those positions, he has to get out of that narrow, ghetto-type thinking that he does and realize that we have people that are going to the moon. We have people that are building 75-story buildings downtown, and these public officials that we elect are out here advocating a shack for us. None of them have advocated one of those buildings for South Central Los Angeles. None of them have said, let's put a major library in Watts. None of them have said, let's build a hotel out there in Watts.
And then get part one out, because we will do the setback in part one. Part two, this is the order. Part two. Contractor part two. We start with the March 9,